Good morning. I'm glad that James pointed out this morning that I'm not from Australia, because I'm certain that you guys wouldn't have picked that up otherwise. So, as James pointed out, I'm doing a lot of cropping systems work in central U.S. A lot of people ask where we're at. If you point a dot right in the middle of the U.S., you'll hit me on the head probably. So that gives you a little bit of a feel for, excuse me, what our perspective is, where we're coming from when we talk about some of the things we've done. I appreciate Andrew leading off, because I think he kind of set the stage for some of the things that we're going to talk about. I think Bill's talk will fall in very nicely with the things I'm going to present today. And I think it'll give you a full picture. When we talk about pesticide applications in the U.S., we're always talking about off-target movement, but we also talk extensively about making sure that we get the most out of the applications, because we're seeing a huge concern with herbicide resistance and other types of resistances in the U.S. So making sure that we maximize the efficacy out of those products so that those products will last as long as possible is absolutely critical for us. Now, I always like to put this up for all of you pesticide applicators out there. You know exactly what I'm talking about when I show something like this, and it's really meant to illustrate how few or how many different things that applicator has to think through when they make an application. So as you can see, it's not always a straightforward process. There's a lot of things that go into making a good, clean application and getting the most out of your product. Certainly not going to talk about each one of these today. We don't have time to discuss each one in detail, but keep in mind that when a pesticide applicator takes a pesticide and dumps that jug into the tank, there's a lot of things that could happen before you get to that final biological effect or that efficacy that we're looking for, that could affect how well that product works in transit. Now, today I'm just going to talk real briefly about two field studies that we've done. I think they tie together well. I think they'll give you a good perspective of what we're seeing in the U.S. in terms of pesticide applications, and I think it'll also give you a good take-home message in that there are things that we can do to maximize pesticide applications, but we got to know both the target or the target that we're trying to control, as well as the product that we're using. So I always encourage our applicators to pick up that pesticide label. I usually get a laugh from most of them because they don't want to take the time to do that. They know the products, but there's a lot of times the information in that pesticide label that can help an applicator make a cleaner or more efficient application if they just take a few minutes to read through the details in there. Now, the study that we've done, we've got a picture on this top right-hand corner. It's a little tough to see, but what we've done is we've planted 6 different species in rows going across the picture. And what we've done is we've gone in and sprayed the plots across those planted rows then. So you can see the different locations across Nebraska that we've looked at. Each location we had 4 replications. And you can see the species that we looked at. I do want to point out that the soybeans and the corn are non-traded corn and soybean lines, so we don't have Roundup Ready, Liberty Link, or any of those other herbicide resistances in those lines. And then lastly, the nozzles that we looked at a flat fan 11002. By definition in the TJET catalog at 40 psi, that should give us a fine spray quality. We used a flat fan 11003 at 43.5 psi or 3 bar, just as a reference point between the fine and the medium spray boundary. The Turbo T, which should have given us a medium spray quality. The AIXR, which should have given us a coarse spray quality. And then the AI nozzle, which should have given us an extremely coarse spray quality. And what we're trying to do is get a range of different droplet sizes that we're looking at. So the next set of slides will all look like this. On that x-axis, what we've done is we've plotted out the droplet size, and that's the DV10 value, so it's given us a proxy for drift potential. So the farther that you see those points on to the left, the greater the drift potential is going to be for that. And as no surprise to you guys, the finer the spray quality, the greater the drift potential, the coarser the spray quality, the lower the drift potential is going to be for these applications. And then on the y-axis, what we've done is we plotted out the efficacy that we saw. And I do want to point out that in these studies, we used a half a rate of what our growers are using in the field to make these applications, because we wanted to get some separation between treatments. However, and with that, some of the products you'll see the efficacy will be much lower than what we would generally expect. The one caveat to that was the glyphosate application, and this was a Roundup Power Max application. And you can see we got pretty good control regardless of the spray quality that we were looking at, between 95 and 100% control, regardless of the droplet size. And this really mimics what the recommendations have been to growers in the Roundup Ready systems, whether it's been corn or soybeans, and that we use larger spray qualities. And the reason the push has been there is because we can minimize the drift potential without giving up any efficacy in terms of the control of that product on the weed species that we're looking at. I think you'll find that true both through the rest of this study and the following study I'm going to talk about, in that systemic-based products we see really good control pretty much regardless of droplet size or carrier rate. Now, when we switch to Clarity, we've got another systemic product here. This is a dicamba-based product. You can see very much a horizontal trend again, no statistical difference between treatments. And it's just illustrating the point that those systemic-based products are going to translocate, and the spray quality really isn't making much difference in terms of the control we get. So once again, with these dicamba-based products that we've tested, we're going to push our growers to use the more coarse spray qualities and get the least drift potential possible. Now, when we looked at Reflex, this is a PPO inhibitor. We've got a contact-based product now, and it's important to note what we started to see is a trend where we see reduced efficacy when we get too fine of droplets, and this is due to off-target movement, but we also see reduced efficacy as we start to get to the coarse or very extremely coarse spray qualities, and that's due to lack of coverage. And so we've got to make sure that, and I'll kind of address this in the next talk, but there are ways that we can get good coverage while maintaining that coarse or extremely coarse spray quality, but it comes through making sure that we get the appropriate carrier rates. But with these contact-based products, it's absolutely critical that we get the coverage to get the control out of them. Now, the first three I've showed you were an amaranth. This slide is looking at that PPO inhibitor again on a flax, and now we've got a weed species that we're trying to control that would have a much smaller leaf area than that amaranth, and the contact and the coverage becomes even more critical with these types of species. You can see that we've got greater than 30% difference when we go from that fine spray quality to coarse spray quality. Now, I'm not advocating that we spray a fine or a medium spray quality or as opposed to a coarse, but making sure that we get that appropriate coverage for those types of products. This is Select Max. We see a lot of ACCase inhibitors going out to control volunteer corn. Once again, that finer spray quality where we got better coverage was the treatment that stood out for us in this particular study. Now, the second study I want to talk about is looking at what we call it carrier rate. I was corrected last week in terms of the fact that we should be calling it water volume, that you guys would translate to that better. So if I say carrier rate, I mean water volume. It's just an American mistake, so bear with me on that one. We haven't quite got it figured out yet, I guess. But for this water volume study, what we looked at was 4 different herbicides. We had glyphosate, we had a glufosinate, a lactofen or that PPO inhibitor again, and then 2,4-D. So we've got the 2 contact-based products here, the glufosinate and that lactofen, and we've got 2 systemic-based products with the glyphosate and the 2,4-D. The study was set up very similar, a little bit different locations throughout Nebraska, but same concept in that we planted those species out and then we sprayed across the plots. Now for this study, we looked at 5 different carrier rates, 47 liters per hectare up to 187 liters per hectare. And what we did to get those, we went from an XR flat fan 11001. The second treatment, we went to 70 liters per hectare. You can see we used the same nozzle, the same speed. The way we accomplished that was by increasing the pressure. The third treatment, we went to 94 liters per hectare, same nozzle again, same speed, increased pressure again. And then when we got to 140 liters per hectare with our backpack plot sprayer, and I also want to point out that this isn't necessarily reflective of what our growers would be doing, but we were trying to get these different treatments so that we got different droplet sizes and different carrier rates out. with that backpack sprayer, we just could not increase the pressure any higher without blowing up the system. My graduate students weren't interested in a backpack sprayer that blew up, so we went to a little bit larger orifice. In doing that, and I'll point out, and you'll see it in the following slides, when we went to that larger orifice, we decreased the pressure back down, the droplet size went back up, closer to where we were with the first two treatments. When we went to 187 liters per hectare, once again, same thing. We went to a larger orifice, decreased the pressure, and we got larger droplet size. So what you'll see with these 5 treatments, even though we increased the water volume that we're putting on with the different applications, the finest droplet size actually is going to come from that middle treatment, that 94 liters per hectare. And it's going to be absolutely critical to recognize that as I talk about some of the data that we saw in these studies. Now, just like the previous study, when we looked at the 2,4-D and the glyphosate, we saw no statistical difference between the different 5 different treatments. Once again, using a half array of the product, so keep in mind that it's not that we would expect 60% control of 2,4-D on velvet leaf, but that we would expect, but that we got a difference there between, or we were looking for the difference between the treatment because of that half rate. Now, what we saw, like I said, no statistical difference with the 2 systemic-based herbicides. With the 2 contact-based herbicides, and you can see we've got the letters separating the treatments. When we got below about 94 liters per hectare, we saw a significant drop-off in the control that we got. That was true for both the PPO inhibitor as well as the glufosinate. Looking at amaranth, the same study. No statistical difference, once again, between the treatments for 2,4-D or the glyphosate, but now we've got a system where you can see a lot more variability with the glyphosate across the 5 treatments. And I think that's really reflective of what we see in terms of control of amaranth type species in the US, and that the control is very inconsistent. Even though we had almost 20% difference in the control between treatments, no statistical difference, and that was just because of that variability from one plot to the next. Now, however, I want to point out again, as we got those lower water volumes for the 2 contact-based products, you can see the control drop off significantly. These 2 pictures are just to show you what we're looking at and to show you why it's so critical for us to make sure that we get good, clean applications. What we've done, you can see on the left-hand side, the 47 liter per hectare treatment, the right-hand side, the 94 liter per hectare treatment of that PPO inhibitor. This is a product that we've used a lot to try to manage glyphosate-resistant weeds in soybean fields. And you can see that red circle, we've tried to circle that amaranth, and on the left-hand side, you'll notice that there's a significantly, or a large growing plant there, about 6 inches, and this is 28 days after the treatment. On that right-hand side, you'll notice that where that amaranth should have been, we've completely controlled it. So making sure that we maximize those applications is absolutely critical for us in terms of resistance management. Just real briefly, this is looking at corn. It just illustrates the same concept. Except for the one thing I want to point out on this slide is that you can see with the lactofen that we needed that 187 liters per hectare to get the most out of that particular product. And if we look at the label, and I told you there's a lot of information on the product labels, that product label will tell us that 187 liters per hectare is required for this particular product. Soybeans, I'm going to skip over for the sake of time. And I want to spend just one brief minute on this slide here. So we talked a little bit about making sure we get the right carrier volume. What you see on these slides, we've got our 5 different carrier volumes or water volumes plotted out. On the y-axis, on one, we've got the droplet size. On the other, we've got the control. And what we've done is in the triangle box, or the triangles that you see here, the line with the triangles, that is the control that we got from those studies. So this is just that same data that I presented on the previous slides for the amaranth. And then what we've done is we went into the wind tunnels. We've got a setup similar to Andrew's. We ran these treatments in the wind tunnel, measured droplet size, and we plotted out the average droplet size, or not the average droplet size, the median droplet size across those 5 treatments as well. And what you'll see is with both the glufosinate and the lactofen, you can see that the triangular line will increase as the carrier volume increases, both here and here. indicating that carrier volume is a critical factor for us to make sure that we maximize those applications. With the 2,4-D and the glyphosate, you'll see that those two lines pretty much mirror each other, and you can see that here and here. And that's indicating that droplet size for us is more important than the carrier volume. And you'll notice that with both of those two products, the control is the greatest where the droplet size is the largest. So really pushing those systemic-based products to a larger droplet size is absolutely critical for us to maximize control. I just want to spend 1 second, if you guys want more information on droplet size, we've developed an app. We're working with Andrew to get some of the Australian data into this, as well as to get it converted to metric units. Right now it's only going to be in imperial units, but you can go on to the Google Play Store or the iTunes App Store and download these apps. We've developed this so that applicators can go and select the nozzle type they're using. They can insert the pressure, the spray solution, and the orifice size that they're using, and then it'll kick out the droplet size that they have. So trying to get more information into our applicators' hands. I think with that, I've got my key points here. I'm not going to re-emphasize those. I've talked about them throughout the talk. I think I'll turn it over to Bill unless there's a quick question.